Hello, everybody. Welcome into this beautiful Friday on the Triple Threat Show. Thank you so much, everybody, for tuning in. We have a lot to get into. This is the last Friday without football. That's right. Week 0 kicks off tomorrow. We have an excellent top 25 matchup over in Ireland. Cannot wait for that one. We, of course, have to finish our preview of everything around the NFL. We're going to talk about the AFC West in our division preview today. Can the Chiefs remain unbeatable, or are there reinforcements on the way in their own divisions? We'll break that down. Brian Robinson, no longer a member of the Washington Commanders. We'll talk about his impact on the 49ers and whether or not it was a good decision for the Commanders to move off of a running back who started for them for 3 straight seasons. All that more coming up here on the Triple Threat Show, but we're going to start off, as we always do, with a little bit of NFL news. We're going to start off with Brian Robinson and a little bit of Jackson Dart. Of course, a lot of you guys looking at your fantasy drafts right now. Shout out Hayden in the comments right now for doing a little bit of fantasy drafting. You're going to absolutely kill it for our team, I believe. But we're going to talk a little bit about Brian Robinson here, because Brian Robinson is a really interesting case. He's a running back that's been a starter for this Washington Commanders franchise for the last 3 seasons. This is a guy, of course, who went through a lot of adversity over his career. He's a guy that, got shot his rookie season. He came back just a couple of weeks later, but he's also a guy that averages right around 800 yards a season. You look at a career high season for him being 799 yards last year, but 797 in 12 games, 733 in 15 games, 799 in 14 games last season over a 3-year span in the NFL. This is a guy that is a straight-nosed, hard football guy. He's someone that you just hand the ball 3 yards and a cloud of dust kind of running back, and that wasn't what fit the system that's going on in Washington. Cliff Kingsbury likes to spread it out. West Coast offense, lots of openings, lots of quick screen passes, and that's not really Brian Robinson's game. Now, do I like this move for the 49ers? Absolutely. You have a guy in Christian McCaffrey who we don't know is going to be healthy. He's a guy that, when he's on the field, is arguably the best offensive weapon in the entirety of the NFL, but he has a long and storied history of not being able to be out there on the field, does Christian McCaffrey. You bring in Brian Robinson, not necessarily as a starter, because Brian Robinson, a guy that's solid, but not really an elite level running back. You bring him as a guy that can spell your guy, Christian McCaffrey, as a guy that can be a short yardage kind of back, a guy that can come in and make the big power runs that you need. A team like the Dolphins were a team that I thought would really use a guy like that, but they might have a guy in Ollie Gordon that they want to give that role to. There's a lot of different places that you can go to, but the 49ers probably the best system overall. He was never going to have the opportunity to start. That was clear what was going to happen when the Commanders said that they were shopping him. If you're shopping him, if you're announcing it like that, you're not going to be able to get that kind of package, that 4th-round pick package. You get a 6th-round pick. Sure, why not? That's pretty good value. That's more value than I thought they were going to get, honestly. I thought BRob was a guy that was going to just have to be a guy that got cut, a casualty of that 53-man roster that's going to be done on Tuesday. Instead, the 49ers, who have struggled with injury concerns at the skill positions themselves. We talked about their wide receivers the other day after trading for Sky Moore. This is now a big time move for them, because it's not just the wide receiver room that's injured. You also have the running back room that's injured. Outside of Christian McCaffrey, there was not another healthy running back on the roster. You now get BRob, who, despite everything you might say about him, has been healthy. And you get a guy that's been healthy in a Kyle Shanahan system. He's going to have a real good season. Now, if you're looking at fantasy value, he's not really going to be worth it, because he's not going to be a starter. But as a handcuff, solid. He's not your typical super fast kind of Shanahan style running back, but you get a power back in that system. You let him run that outside zone a little bit. I think he'll be perfectly fine in that system. Not a perfect fit, but a quick little stopgap. I absolutely love this move for both sides. Washington retains about a third of that salary. Still a rookie contract, so it's not that much money at the end of the day, but I do like this move for both sides. 49ers get depth, and the Commanders, they get to see what they've got in their young guys. Bill Krosky-Merritt, Ja'Cory Krosky-Merritt over there, most likely going to become the starter at some point. Chris Rodriguez, who can play that power back sort of role. And you still have Austin Eckler, who, despite being a little bit older when it comes to running backs, still gets it done a little bit. It's a pretty deep running back room. Throw in Jeremy McNichols. They didn't need BRob, which is why he was an expendable piece, a piece that was never going to be on the 53-man roster when roster cut day came. So they get off of him for something. 49ers get some much-needed depth. I absolutely love it for both of these sides. But let's talk a little bit about Jackson Dart, because BRob wasn't the only big piece of news that changed throughout the last couple of hours, last 24 hours. We saw Jackson Dart show up for the third time in the preseason. In our previous shows, I've talked about Jackson Dart. I've said, hey, let's pump the brake. Jackson Dart has been really good, no doubt about it. You look at the numbers, but he hasn't pushed the ball downfield. He's been a little bit inaccurate pushing the ball downfield, but he looked a lot better in this one. You want to talk about a guy that wasn't afraid to stand in the pocket and get hit? That's Jackson Dart. Now, that is a dangerous way to play the game, but the fact that he consistently stands tough in the pocket, follows through on his throws, and then gets clobbered, gets right back up, that's amazing to see. You also see how the team around him seems to really be gravitating towards a guy like that, making those tough plays, making those tough throws. Now, it wasn't perfect. He had all day in the pocket. Some of those throws that he was making, some of those really good decisions he was making when he was scrambling, it was a clean pocket. He had all day. That's not going to happen. You have to remember, again, it's still the preseason. It's still third, fourth stringers. These are not starters that he's going up against, but there are some really promising signs. Do I think he's ready to start week one? Absolutely not. But I am going to change my tone a little bit on him. I was not ready to call him a startable quarterback in the NFL at the beginning of this preseason. Last week, I wasn't quite ready to call him a guy that was ready to start in the NFL. But the way that he's playing under Brian Daboll, who's been really good at being a quarterback whisperer, got Daniel Jones $40 million, got the best out of Josh Allen, something that was not an easy task to say the least. We look at it right now and we say, of course, Josh Allen was always going to work out. But early on in his career, Josh Allen looked closer to Anthony Richardson than he did to a guy that just won an MVP. You know what I mean? There are a lot of different ways that it could have gone, and Brian Daboll, undoubtedly a quarterback whisperer, someone that can come in, get the job done, help out these young quarterbacks, develop them, get a system surrounding them that's going to make them successful, and that is why Brian Daboll should not get fired as a head coach, but that's a whole nother conversation. Jackson Dart will start by the time this season is done. Russell Wilson, if I had to guess that quarterback depth chart, the way it's going to go, Russell Wilson will be QB1, QB2 will be Jameis. He's going to be the consummate backup. He's going to be the backup all season long. QB3 will be Jackson Dart, and your emergency quarterback, it'll be Tommy DeVito, practice squad kind of guy. After that, maybe halfway through the season, maybe 10 weeks into the season, we see a swap. Jackson Dart gets QB1, Jameis Winston's still going to be QB2, and Russell Wilson goes to QB3 here. Everyone knows the level of progression here. Jameis Winston is going to be an option. He's a guy that everyone really likes around. That's not a secret. He's a guy that really good for a locker room, but I don't see with the moves that this Giants team has made, Jameis Winston getting into the game unless there's injuries or unless something crazy happens where these guys, Jackson Dart, Tommy DeVito, these guys just really aren't ready for action. He's going to be that backup quarterback. Is Jameis Winston, a guy that's always ready to come in at the next second, but I don't think he ever becomes a true starter for this team this year, of course, unless the worst happens, injuries and stuff like that. But is Jackson Dart for real? That's the question we have to pose. Again, it's hard to tell because he's going up against third and fourth string guys, but there's definitely flashes there. We see the arm talent. I still want to see him go through his decisions a little bit quicker. I want to see his receivers be able to catch the balls from him. He's made a lot of really good throws that his receivers just have not been able to reel in. But there's a lot to like from Jackson Dart. We just don't want to put all of our weight into what we see in the preseason because that is a very, very dangerous way to play, and we want to make sure that we are not going way over or under on one side of these things. He's a young quarterback, needs to develop. He's not ready to go. Everyone calling for him to play week one, calm down a little bit. Give him more time. Let him see some real game action. He doesn't need to be thrown to the wolves. This is the Giants team that's going to be bad next season. And it's not necessarily because this team is bad. This is a team that could have a top 5 defense in the entire NFL, has the best defensive line in the entire NFL, has one of the best wide receivers in the NFL in Malik Neighbors. They just need competent quarterback play, and they'll be okay. But with a schedule as tough as it is with the Giants this year, you're looking at ceiling 6 wins, maybe, simply because of the schedule they have to go up against, and it's not going to be easy. Either way, this is a Giants team that's going to struggle, so let's take a deep breath. Let's take a step back, and let's say, Jackson Dart, you will get in soon, but we don't need you in week 1. I'm excited for this regular season, though. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts on Jackson Dart. What do you think? You think he's going to be ready? What do you think his outlook looks like? Is Brian Daboll going to be able to survive this season and maybe coach up a guy like Jackson Dart as they get ready for the next era of Giants football? Let me know in the comments. I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, the AFC West. We've gone over just about every single division, 6 of the 8 so far. The AFC West coming up next. We'll talk about if the Chiefs can repeat at the top of that division. Can the Chargers or the Broncos, both playoff teams from last year, mount a little bit of a comeback? What about the Geno Smith-led Raiders? Are they ready to step up to the big time? We'll talk about all of that and more coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, we just finished going over everything that you need to know about Brian Robinson, Jackson Dart, and more storylines from around the NFL. We continue our NFL coverage here this segment, talking a little bit about the AFC West. We've gone over 6 of the 8 divisions so far. Now we turn our attention to the domain of the Kings, the Chiefs, the ones that have been a dynasty over the last couple of seasons. Patrick Mahomes looks to lead them to yet another AFC West title, but this is probably the most competitive the AFC West has been in a very long time. Now, of course, we said that last year, and they went and only lost 2 games, simply won 15 games. Of course, it was that easy for them to simply go and do that because they're the Kansas City Chiefs, because they have Patrick Mahomes, because they're that good, right? But this is different. Year 2 Harbaugh has always been very, very tough. He's always been very successful. Everywhere he goes, year 2 Harbaugh, that's when they make that big jump. And we're going to see year 2 Harbaugh with the Chargers. We're going to see Bo Nix in year 2. Was it for real or was it a fluke? We'll answer that question. And then the Raiders, they have lots of big changes. You bring in Geno Smith, who in my opinion is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL. You bring in a brand new head coach in Pete Carroll, who's been there, done that just about every single level of football. If anyone can turn them around quickly, it's them. Ashton Genty, Brock Bowers. You have Jacoby Myers. Lots of good weapons for these guys. Would love to have a guy like Christian Wilkins on the defense, but what can you do? It's the Raiders, right? He is no longer a member of the team, but you still have Max Crosby. You still have a lot to like on that defensive end with some of those young stars, young guys that could maybe step up big. That's where the big concern is when you're talking about these teams. And we'll start off with the Raiders right there. Of course, they had a very, very busy offseason. The Raiders go out and they trade for Geno Smith. They bring in Ashton Genty. They solve a lot of those big-time issues. They have arguably the best tight end in football in Brock Bowers. That is 3 positions taken care of, 3 of the most important positions, I should say, taken care of. On top of that, you have Jacoby Myers, who's maybe the most underrated player in all of the NFL. His quiet ability just to be a great wide receiver should not be taken lightly. This is a Raiders team that's going to be a lot better than last year, but like I was talking about, the big concern with them is going to be on the defensive side of the ball. Moving off of a guy like Christian Wilkins, after paying Max Crosby, those two were supposed to be a deadly duo on that defensive line. Instead, you're left with not much after Wilkins. There's a gaping hole in that defensive tackle position. Even though he wasn't going to be ready, that was a good guy to have in the wings waiting for the U to come in. Side note, surprised he hasn't found a place to sign yet, but maybe he is waiting. Maybe teams are waiting for him to heal first, because I don't know if he would pass a physical right now. But the Raiders are going to be one of the more interesting teams. I think they have the highest floor to ceiling ratio of just about any team in the NFL. We talk about a floor with this team. Everything could fall out. The bottom could fall out from under them. The defense could implode. Geno Smith could just not have the answers or the weapons that he needs in a new system. And Pete Carroll, in a big time of change, maybe he's just not up for it right now. I'd say the floor is anywhere from 3 to 4 wins. The ceiling, on the other side, is massive. Sure, they have a tough division. They have to go against 3 playoff teams from last year in their division alone. That's 6 playoff games from last season, as well as going up against the Commanders, who are going to be good again, going up against the AFC South, who have the Texans, and a couple of teams that I think could break out as well. Lots of tough matchups. The NFC East as well. The Cowboys, the Eagles, Super Bowl champions. Not a lot of super easy games in there, but they do get that 4th place schedule. They get the Bears, they get the Bears, they get the Browns, right? Those are their extra teams that they get to play. We'll have to see if it's enough, because like I said, this is a Raiders team that have a really, really high variance. A lot of it with an older team, of course, has to do with injuries, but there's just so much change in that organization right now. I want to believe in this Raiders team. I want this Raiders team to be better than a lot of people are giving them credit for because they have a lot of fun guys. I think Ashton Genty is going to catapult himself into the discussion as one of the best running backs in the league, near top 5 kind of situation. Geno Smith, with his ability to handle pressure, even up behind a not great Raiders offensive line, should be able to stem the tide enough that the Raiders will be okay offensively. You, of course, have Brock Bowers, who is a monster, Jacoby Myers, who is a monster, and out of the backfield, again, you have Ashton Genty, who's not the worst pass-catching back. There's lots of stuff to like here in a Pete Carroll system where it's going to be very run-heavy. I like it a lot. We've seen it work over in Seattle in a very similar kind of situation, although the defense in Seattle is better, which is why they won 10 games last year. I don't necessarily think the Raiders are on pace to win 10 games, but if you compare it to Seattle last season, really good running back, couple of great weapons, DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, all these guys, JSN for Geno Smith. I think it's a very similar situation. So we're looking anywhere with a little bit of a worse defense from, I'd say, 6 to 9 wins. And I'm going to put them on a little bit of the lower rung there for the Raiders. I have them going 6 wins here. Now, again, I could very easily see them winning 9 games. Maybe they split a couple games in the division, flip-flop them. I have them losing to the Patriots week 1, although that could very easily change as both of those teams are going to be starting basically over brand new. A couple of games that could go either way. Again, the Jaguars, a little bit of a toss-up over there. I think they could have a shot against the Cowboys on Monday Night Football. The Browns, I have them beaten there. And then, Texans, I could see them beat as well. There's a couple of other teams on here that I think they'll give a good run for their money for. But at the end of the day, I think this is a Raiders team that's defense just isn't quite good enough to compete for a division crown right now. I have them going 6-11, finishing 4th in that division and missing out on the playoffs. The other 3 teams all made the playoffs last year, and I think they all could compete for it again. I'll start with the Broncos because I am a well-known Bo Nix hater. Tattoo that across my chest. Stamp it on my forehead. I am a Bo Nix hater. I was talking with some friends last season, was talking on this show last season, talking on GSMC, all the shows that we've done. I've made it well known. I'm not a big fan of Bo Nix. And on those points that we were talking, there's a lot of really interesting comparisons between him and one Mac Jones. And we see where Mac Jones is now. They both wear number 10. They're both white guys, pro style, out of college, right? Let's get the superficial differences out of the way. The other similarities, they both played and made the playoffs their first year as rookies. They both had legendary head coaches who were on the other side of their prime. Sean Payton coming out of retirement and Bill Belichick nearing the end of his NFL coaching tenure over there right after losing Brady, right? You also have a defense that was elite, a defense that was major points, was a major reason why they were able to win so many games. The Broncos defense is going to be elite again, which I think is one of the bigger differences between him and Mac Jones. But also, the last time that a cornerback, other than last year Pat Surtain, won the Defensive Player of the Year, Mac Jones' rookie season, when Stephon Gilmore won Defensive Player of the Year. There's lots of similarities there, and I am not one to say this happens, history repeats itself over and over again, but it sure does fit my narrative that the Broncos are kind of going to be on a little bit of a decline. I think this Broncos defense is going to be good enough for them to survive a Mac Jonesoning of Bo Nix. I just don't think Bo Nix is the answer, and this I could be well wrong on. Feel free to clown me. Tell me how wrong I am if this doesn't work out. But I'm low on this Broncos team. Again, I love that defense. I think they're going to have the best defense in the NFL this season. But I just don't have them in the playoffs this year. They're real close. I will say, we were talking about it on the last show. I think that game versus the Jaguars in Week 16 is going to decide a playoff spot. Just straight up. The winner of that game gets into the playoffs. I have both of these teams finishing at 9-8. The Broncos could be a lot higher. They really could. This is me betting low on Bo Nix. This is me saying he's going to be closer to Mac Jones. But at the end of the day, 9-8 still not a bad record at all. Still puts you at, in my rankings, 8th overall in the AFC and tied for a playoff spot. There is a lot to like about this Broncos team. Again, that defense especially. That's just how it's going to go. The defense especially is going to carry them, and that is a way to win games, especially in the regular season. But if we look ahead at the playoffs, if they find their way in, this is not a team that I expect to do anything when it comes to playoff time. Two teams that can actually compete for the division, though. We're looking at the Chargers and the Chiefs, because these two are the top dogs. We talked about year 2 Harbaugh in the intro here. We talked about what he can do, what he has done in year 2, taking teams to Super Bowls, taking teams to national titles, win Big Tens over in Michigan, right? There is a lot to like about year 2 Harbaugh, and the Chargers are about to experience that boost. We have, in my opinion, a top 5 quarterback in Justin Herbert, getting his best wide receiver core in his history, in his entire career. And we've seen what happens when he has an okay receiving core. Keenan Allen returns. Last time Keenan Allen was on the team, they lost to the playoffs to the Jaguars in brutal fashion. Right? Ladd McConkey, second year of Ladd McConkey, he's going to be huge for them. You have a really solid set of rookie receivers and young guys that are ready to make a bit of noise. We haven't heard too much from the rookie out of Ole Miss, but I do expect him to have a pretty big year, as well as a couple other rookies on this Chargers squad. The big story, though, with this offseason is what's going on with Najee Harris. The Chargers love to run the football. Harbaugh loves to run the football. And we focused, as much as we like to focus on the quarterbacks, as much as we like to focus on the guys that are pass catchers and these big play merchants, the running backs are huge in the system. They let J.K. Dobbins walk. Now they go out and find new options. They draft Amarian Hampton in the first round. He looks like he's ready to take that role, although they say they want to do a split between him and someone else. That someone else was supposed to be Najee Harris, but fireworks, ladies and gentlemen, fireworks, kids, very dangerous. Don't go playing around with fireworks. You could lose an eye. Now, that's not necessarily what happened with Najee Harris, but reports are that Najee Harris still cannot open his left eye because of a fireworks incident that happened in July 4th. Although we also had other NFL players, JPP, Jason Pierre-Paul, former defensive end for the Giants, for the Bucs, Super Bowl champion multiple times. Shout out JPP. He lost a thumb, or a finger, I should say, because of a fireworks accident. If NFL players can get hit by it, so can a regular old Joe Schmo. So be careful around fireworks. They will hurt you. But that's going to be the question. Who is going to be the Najee Harris replacement if Najee Harris can't go? And if Najee Harris can go, is he going to be the same? Because the identity is to run the ball. We also have some injuries to the offensive line for this Chargers team already in training camp. That's something to keep an eye on. They're going to be down an offensive lineman for the whole season. Rashawn Slater, who they signed to a big deal. Liz Frank injury, not going to be out there for the whole year. But I still believe in this Chargers team. This is a Chargers team that I think if anyone is going to knock the Chiefs off, it's going to be them. They open up their season in Brazil Friday, a week from today. 2 weeks from today. We get to see the Chargers and Chiefs in Brazil. The Brazil game last year, smashing success. It was amazing to go see. But Chiefs-Chargers should be a lot of fun. An opening to the season. I like this team a lot. The Chiefs, on the other hand, the incumbents, the one with the advantage, the one with Patrick Mahomes. When you have Patrick Mahomes, you always got a real chance to win any game. The defense is going to be good. The offense is where I get concerned. They have a lot of running backs, but none of them super big. Not that it makes a difference. Isaiah Pacheco, Kareem Hunt, all these guys can make noise. All of these guys can score touchdowns. I'm not too worried about that. Xavier Worthy, second year. They trade away Sky Moore. They bring in a couple of receivers that I think are going to make a big difference. Couple guys coming out of camp. Keep an eye on. Of course, Rashee Rice is one of those very interesting ones. He has a court date on September 30th, 4 weeks into the season, to decide what his suspension is going to be for his hit and run activities, alleged, that took place just a couple of seasons ago, last year. So we'll see how much time he misses. He's most likely going to miss some time, and that should hurt them. The Chiefs won a lot of one-possession games. In fact, the most one-possession games out of any team in the league last year. You can call it luck. You can call it skill. I call it a little bit of both, because you need a little bit of both to win some of those games. But at the end of the day, the Chiefs were always going to be good. They're going to be better. I don't imagine them relying so much on one-score games. The defense is going to be better. Under Spags, it always is good. And you, of course, have Chris Jones returning. This is a Chiefs team that I don't think is going to win 15 games. They've got to regress to the mean a little bit, but regressing to the mean for them, that's still looking at 11, 12, 13 wins. You know, you're looking at arguably best team in the AFC, definitely a Super Bowl competitor every single year that Patrick Mahomes is on this team, and I think it's going to be more of the same. As much as I have heard all offseason from friends, from coworkers, from everyone, the Chiefs aren't going to repeat the AFC West. I am not in the business of betting against Patrick Mahomes. I cannot do it. I've got the Chiefs finishing at 12-5, winning the division. The Chargers finishing at 11-6, second place in that division, still making it to the playoffs. But this is a Chiefs team that if you gave me $100, I would never bet against them right now, just because if you don't see a god go down, you can't ever picture a god going down kind of situation. This is a Chiefs team that I will see it until I believe it. Mehrob, we talked about the Broncos here. I'm telling you, man, the Broncos, Bo Nix is going to turn into Mac Jones. We've talked about this. We'll talk more about it when you get back on the show here. But the Chiefs, I have taken this division for yet another season. They have dominated everyone. It's not just that they're the best team in football most years. It's that the teams in their own division can't even beat them. The Chargers have a game against them every once in a while. The Broncos went nearly 10 years without beating them until last season. Now, things changed a little bit. New quarterback, better defense. Maybe we start to see things change, but the Chiefs are elite, and I'm not going to bet against them until I see something different. The Chiefs win their division. They make it into the playoffs, but this is a 2-playoff team. This is a 2-playoff division. The Chiefs and the Chargers find their way in. The Broncos lose out on the tiebreaker. That Week 16 game against the Jaguars that we talked about, I have them losing that one. That's the difference between the Jaguars being a playoff team and the Broncos being a playoff team. So shout out the Jaguars, sneak their way in that 7th seed in my AFC playoffs. But I have the Chiefs winning their division. Disagree with me in the comments all you want. I'd love to hear your thoughts. Who wins this division? Who comes second? What are your record predictions? What's your floor, your ceiling for all of these teams? I'd love to hear your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we turn our attention over to college football. College football, Week 0 is here. That's right, tomorrow we have a top 25 matchup to kick off the season over in Ireland. We have a couple of other big games. Fresno State at Kansas, Idaho State at UNLV, Sam Houston at Western Kentucky, Stanford at Hawaii. Should be good. We have Iowa State, Kansas State, 22-17. We'll break all those games coming up. Break all those games down coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus. If you were just tuning in, make sure you check us out everywhere, not just the beginning of this show, which you have to go check out. Find out what I thought of the AFC West, who's going to win that division, and what's going on with Brian Robinson. But also check us out everywhere around the internet. Everywhere you get your podcast, you'll find my beautiful voice as well as the other hosts of our show hanging out just there for your listening pleasure on YouTube at Triple Threat Show, Twitch at 3 Threat Show, Instagram at 3 Threat Show _, and on TikTok at the _Triple Threat Show. Check us out everywhere. Give us a follow, a like, subscribe. We really appreciate your support here, but we've talked a lot about the NFL. But the NFL should not be the main story today because college football is here. College football is here right now. Sound the alarms. Hit the emergency button. Week 0 starts tomorrow. In Ireland, we get to see a top 25 matchup. Last year, we saw Georgia Tech take down Florida State over in Ireland in what spelled the beginning of the end for a disastrous Florida State season. Will it be more of the same for Iowa State or Kansas State? We'll talk about all of that. And why don't we start off? We'll end with that matchup, of course. That's the big headliner. We can't just start off with the big one. There's a couple of other big matchups, 5 matchups, in fact, to go over here for you. We'll start off with one of my favorite ones, I will say. Stanford at Hawaii. The Rainbow Warriors in Hawaii always get a game in week 0. Generally, it doesn't go too well for them. Stanford gives them a real chance to win this game, though, because Stanford is one of the messiest off seasons that we saw out of any college football program. They fired their coach. They fired their GM, brought in Andrew Luck. Frank Reich is the new head coach. It's a big mess over there in Stanford, and Hawaii quietly has gotten better and better and better every single season with a new offensive system. They should be good. Every year, the Rainbow Warriors are expected to have a high-powered offense. I expect them to have that this season, no differently. I think Hawaii, who's favored by 2.5 points entering this one with that home field advantage, I think they scratch this one out. This is going to be a tough one, but mostly because of what's going on with everything behind the scenes in Stanford. I think that's just a little bit too much to come out early in week 0, and Hawaii gets a big power conference win. Shout out the Rainbow Warriors. They start off 1-0 in week 0. Stanford, I think, is going to be a tough season for them as they continue their journey in the ACC. Sam Houston at Western Kentucky, 2 new teams to the FBS level. Sam Houston, very new. They came over just a couple of seasons ago. They got a little bit better. Western Kentucky lost in a bowl game last season. They lost in the bowl game to James Madison. Shout out James Madison for real. Western Kentucky favored by 9.5 points in this one. Sam Houston lost a lot of players. I'm riding with the Cougars, though. Sam Houston, a team that I think should be at least be able to cover that 9.5 point spread. Both of these teams invest heavily for a group of 5 level school, and I think Sam Houston is going to get off to a hot start after a pretty disastrous season, although they did turn it around down the stretch. Our only FBF versus FCS game of the week is Idaho State traveling to UNLV. UNLV had a magical season last year. They lost a lot of key pieces, though. They are going up against an FCS team, but that doesn't mean it's a free win. Idaho State out of the Big Sky Conference, not necessarily your South Dakota State, not necessarily your Bison over in North Dakota State. These are still a very solid team in Idaho State. They're getting better every year. 26.5 points is a lot, but I think UNLV comes out strong, new coaches over there, and I think UNLV shows that they deserve to be in a little bit of a conversation potentially for that group of 5 playoff spot, just like they were last year, battling it out with Boise State. Last 2 games to go over when it comes to week 0. Fresno State takes on Kansas, and this Jayhawks team is sneaky good. Do not sleep on this Jayhawks squad. They had a rough start to last year, but once everything started clicking, their quarterback is going to be back in Jalen Daniels. You're going to have a lot of your same weapons returning for Kansas. You heard me talking in my top 25 video over and over and over again about how having that returning production is going to mean so much, especially in the era of transfer portals. You don't see it, which is partially the reason why I think Clemson is going to be a winner. maybe the winner of college football this season. Kansas is going to be that kind of team. I love this team. I think they're going to be a dark horse out of the Big 12. Keep your eye out on Kansas. They are very, very dangerous. I have them covering that 14.5. And then the big one. The 22nd ranked Iowa State Cyclones traveling to Ireland to take on the 17th ranked Kansas State Wildcats. Kansas State returns quarterback, returns their quarterback who had over 600 yards rushing last year, led all quarterbacks in the Big 12. Avery Johnson, of course, had his moments. He was leading a program in Kansas State that was in conversations early season to be a playoff team. Then they fell off. You're going to get good Avery Johnson. We're going to get bad Avery Johnson. That's the question. They return a bunch of running backs. They lose DJ Giddens, but they do have Edwards, who I really like a lot as a backup to Giddens last year, and now as the feature back. Quick, fast, twitchy, all these words to describe Edwards there. I really do like that for Kansas State. Iowa State returns their quarterback again. That is huge. We love to see that. Iowa State also returns a lot of that defense. That's going to be the key for them. Iowa State, if they can lock down Kansas State, if they can force turnovers, Iowa State is going to be able to come in and create havoc because their offense lost a lot. They lost 2 wide receivers, both to the Texans, to the NFL draft. That's a lot of production. They still have solid production out there. They still have a couple of guys up and coming from last season, but losing wide receiver 1 and wide receiver 2, both guys that go in the day 2, is not necessarily easy to replace. I like Iowa State. I like Kansas State a lot, but I think Avery Johnson comes out foot on the gas, and Kansas State takes this one. Early season victory, early season top 25 matchup. That's exactly what we want to see. I'm taking the Kansas State Wildcats to beat Iowa State. Relatively low scoring game. We're looking at a 31-21 contest, taking the Kansas State Wildcats here. But I'd love to hear your thoughts on any of the week 0 games. Who do you think's going to win? What's going down in Ireland? Who you got in that top 25 matchup? I'd love to hear all of your thoughts. We're going to take a quick break. When we return, MLB is here. Our Friday power rankings, we're ready to go. We'll talk about that and much more. What's going on with the wild cards? That's coming up next here on the Triple Threat Show. Welcome back to the Triple Threat Show. I am your host, Jeremy Lapidus, joined today for the rest of the show by my good friend and co-host, Mehrob Fatemi. Welcome in, Mehrob. How are you doing here today?
Doing wonderful, Jeremy. So sorry I'm late to the show, but you're doing unbelievable today, and I'm so happy I can hop on for a wonderful, wonderful MLB segment. We just saw the Red Sox take a game on the New York Yankees in a big way, and I can't wait to talk about that one. But we got to get through the power rankings first things first.
Yeah, I mean, why don't we just start off with that? We can put the power rankings back a second, but the MLB wildcard race is heating up. As you just mentioned, the Red Sox just finished off a massive sweep of their rival Yankees, putting them now in a pretty commanding spot when it comes to at least locking up a wild card spot, potentially passing the Yankees there. That's a huge series win for them. But let's talk about that AL wild card race just in general, because right now, as it stands before games went final today, I will say, it was the Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners currently holding those three spots. The Reds, or the Royals, excuse me, red hot, I should say, recently, just 2 games back of the M's, the Guardians 3 games back, and the Rangers, who we saw them get hot near the beginning of the post All-Star break season. 5.5 games back. So not quite done yet. But is this the final three? Do you feel confident enough to say that this is the last three? These are the three teams, Yankees, Red Sox, Mariners, that are going to be in the wild card?
I really think so. I mean, I would be the only team I could say might slip out is the Mariners, and I'm shocked that I'm saying that. That I'm not saying the Yankees. But the only reason I'm not saying the Yankees is because of their strength of schedule. If you look through their schedule, they have one of the easier schedules coming up, especially going throughout the rest of the season. I'm looking at the Red Sox to stay in there, and the Mariners as well with how well they are. I think it's going to end up being Red Sox or Mariners for first, Yankees for third, and then whoever ends up in that second spot. I do love the Royals, though, nonetheless. The Royals look absolutely unbelievable right now. They just took out the Detroit Tigers today. And I mean, we don't have our buddy Nolan here, who's a big Detroit Tigers fan, but I mean, I know he's not happy with how things are going over there. I don't. He does not want to see the Royals in the postseason. But I really think this wild card race is. I wouldn't say it's over, but I think these three teams are pretty much set in stone. I think, at least for me.
Yeah, I would say probably. Of course, you still have the division races going on. So, like, nothing too nothing too solid there. Of course, you can still take a look at Astros versus Mariners. That's a tight race going on. The Blue Jays, who probably are going to win that division, but also 5 games is not a super comfortable lead with about 30 games to go in the season right now. So lots of stuff to look at here in the AL. I think the more interesting wild card race, uh, Mehrob, is the NL. If you want to get a final word in on the AL too, but right now that final wild card spot in the NL separated by just half a game. The Mets, who have been, to say the least, not very good at baseball recently. They're very streaky, and we're seeing that pitching, which was the big concern heading into the season. The starting pitching start to collapse a little bit here. They just dropped a series against the Washington Nationals. Not really a sentence that you want to hear when talking about your team there. The Reds, who we talked about a lot as that last man in, that guy outside looking in season after season after season, have a real opportunity to catch up with the Mets, although both of these teams absolutely very streaky. Talk to me a little bit about the NL wild card and also any other thoughts you had on the AL.
Yeah, before I get into the NL, the last word I wanted to put in is the thing that's going to decide who ends up sneaking into that last wild card spot. We have a Mariners and Royals season finale or series in the middle of September. That's a big time series, and that's honestly what I'm looking at to see when we get there how that wild card ends up playing out. But going over to the NL, I mean, I I throw my hands up. I'm the guy that had the Mets as my number one team in the MLB after the trade deadline. I was the person that took the Brewers out and put the Mets as number one. But the Mets are 19 and 34 since June 13th.
Not good.
19-34. And not only was this a team that we all thought was going to go run away with the NL East, maybe not run away because the Phillies are still in that division, but I thought they were going to take the NL East and then find a to cruise their way into the playoffs. Now they're fighting for their playoff lives, going up against the Cincinnati Reds, who have honestly kind of rejuvenated their fan base. Really, of course they have a very star-studded lineup over there, but I mean the Reds are just playing phenomenal. This is a team in the Reds that honestly usually is the last team out in the wild card race. They usually just missed the wild card race over the last few years. And this year, this might be the year that they actually could crack it, and they could actually take a team against a team that a lot of people thought could end up winning the World Series after they acquired Juan Soto this offseason. That it's been a big pitching issue over there in New York. I'm really afraid for the Mets' chances of making the playoffs at this point. I really am.
Yeah, I mean, there's a real chance they miss it. When you bring up how much they've struggled since June, not it's not something that's easy to ignore. It is something that, as a streaky team, you can always turn around because they have the bats to go and be competent. We've seen the arms earlier this season be good enough to be the winner of the NL East, to be near the top of not just the NL, but baseball as a whole when we're talking about wins. So this isn't a team that's so far off that it's impossible to see them making a big comeback, even in their own division with the Phillies there. But you could also, on the flip end, see that the way that they're going. If the pitching doesn't fix itself, which is hard to do now that the trade deadline is done, these guys are getting tired. Even if they do make the playoffs, I think they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. Now, the Reds are a hungry team. This is the closest that they've been to the playoffs for a very long time. They really fell off down the stretch last year. 2 years ago, they were just 2 games out of making that wild card team. Now, half a game back of a struggling New York Mets team. That is going to be a very important race to watch, along with a lot of the other ones. But I do want to talk a little bit about the Brewers and what they've done recently. I'm gonna spoil my power rankings just a little bit because I've got the Brewers at number one. This is a Brewers team that, yes, after winning 14 straight games, is cooled down a little bit, but they've built up a tremendous lead in the NL Central. We've gone from being tied last week to now making a 7-game difference between the Cubs and the Brewers when it comes to that division. The Cubs sitting Kyle Tucker right now as he's dealing with some injuries in a contract season. It's not a great look for them. They started the season off so hot, and I still expect them to make the playoffs. It would be a travesty, quite honestly, if they didn't make the playoffs with how that team is. But they have a lot of issues, the Cubs do. Can we see them kind of fix it before the playoffs? And what's it going to take, Mehrob, for the Cubs to be something or a World Series contender again, like people were talking about them in the All-Star break?
I mean, for starters, they're gonna need Kyle Tucker out there 100%, and I think that's what they're gearing up for. I think they've kind of threw in the towel for the division based on. I mean, the Brewers have really just run away with the division. Have had multiple 13-game win streaks this season. It's like the sixth time in MLB history that's happened. It's ridiculous. Kyle Tucker needs to come back fully healthy. I mean, PCA Pete Crow Armstrong needs to come back. I mean, he's there, but his bat has cooled off significantly. I'm looking at him to kind of come back in a big way. I'm also looking at some of their veterans over there. Justin Turner, looking at him to show up in a big way in the playoffs. Dansby Swanson, of course. You can never forget about him. I mean, across the board, this is a very young but older team. So I think they have a nice balance of veterans and younger players. So I mean, I'm not fully counting them out, but I am worried with this news about Kyle Tucker because it's Kyle Tucker. This is a guy who's just shocked the world in not only Chicago but across the MLB with how well he's played, with how crazy his bat has been performing. And I mean, he's already hit a home run today in this game, but across the board, this is a guy that needs to show up in a big way come postseason.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, they gave up a lot to get him. and it was only a rental. So this is the year that the Cubs needed to go all in. And props to them. They've done it. They've been near the top of the NL all season. Now they just need to finish out strong. But let's hop into our power rankings here, Mehrob. I'm going to start off with just my honorable mentions. We do our top 10 here, of course, every single Friday. Go and tell us how right or wrong we are in the comments. I'd love to hear your guys' thoughts as always. But couple shout outs from me. I want to shout out the Royals. We did a very brief shout out, but 8-2 over the last 10. They've been red hot, making a big playoff push. This Royals team is. They were not a team that I thought was going to come anywhere near the playoffs after the way they started their season, but they've done a really good job just staying consistent, staying near the other teams in the AL. They haven't crashed. They went a little bit in when it came to the trade deadline. Not all the way in, but just a little bit. So shout out the Royals. They just missed the list. The Mets also in my honorable mentions. They've been bad, but what they did at the beginning of the season, it's hard to ignore. They're still in my honorable top 10 mentions. And then the Red Sox. We talked about them at the beginning of this segment, but shout out to the Red Sox really sweeping the Yankees. They now have a half-game lead on the Yankees overall. They're that number one wild card team. Roman Anthony with a huge home run last night. This is a Red Sox team that everything's clicking. They go ahead to get Nate Lowe. To shore up that first base spot. Maybe a change of scenery from the nation's capital can do Nate Lowe some wonders, but we'll have to see. But the Red Sox, Mets, Royals just missing out on my top 10 here, Mehrob. But my number 10 team, the one that just beat him out, the Houston Astros. This is a team that's getting Yordan Alvarez back soon. It's a very scary thought that they've done this basically all season without Yordan. The bats are going to get a lot better. The pitching's been really good for the Astros all season. It's still an Astros team that I think you can compare to the Astros of old when they were a dynasty-ish kind of team, but still a really good Astros squad, and I got them sitting here at number 10.
Yeah, I mean, the 10 is crazy. I mean, 10 is 10? Okay, we'll get into that. They're a little bit higher for me as well. Just a little spoiler for that one. For my honorable mentions, I also threw the Mets in there just because of, I mean, everything that we've been discussing over the last 10 minutes or so with how poorly they've been playing. They're 5-13 since August 1st. They just have been the bats are cold. The pitching is streaky. It's tough to win games when you're playing like that. When both things are off, both sides of the field, you're in for a rough stretch if you're the Mets. So I'm looking at them to kind of turn that around if they can. My other honorable mention, I have the Seattle Mariners. And yeah, that might be a little bit low. I know the Mariners have done really well since the trade deadline, and they have made it a big-time race in the AL West. But I just have them sitting just outside of my top 10 just because they're 3-7 in their last 10, and I'm just, especially with the Astros getting, like you said, Yordan Alvarez back. I'm just worried about their chances getting that top spot in the AL West. But moving into my top 10, I have the Cincinnati Reds sitting at number 10. One of the hottest teams in the MLB and the NL, have really made a big time push for that last wild card spot, like we've said, and I really love this team. This is a really fun team to watch, especially coming down the stretch of the season.
Yeah, absolutely. That's a Reds team that it would be huge for them to get into the playoffs. It's been quite a while, and that fan base in Cincinnati is starved for some postseason baseball. My number 9 team was part of your honorable mentions. I've got the Mariners here. I know they haven't been as good, especially on the road, but that home team is elite, and I think they are still the team to beat out of the AL West, despite being behind the Astros in the standings. Only 2 games back, though. I believe in this team and their ability to turn it around. A little bit of a losing streak, but still, this is a Mariners team that, with all their deadline acquisitions, I think is a team that is a real World Series threat.
Yeah, yeah. The Mariners are still going to be around for a long time coming, no doubt about it. Number 9, I have the Kansas City Royals, a team that you actually had just outside hanging in. I feel like the bottom of our lists are kind of just going to be some of these hot teams that are bursting onto the scene right now. And it's hard to not look at the Royals doing that right now, making it a little bit interesting in the AL Central. I don't think they're going to catch the Tigers. The Tigers have a solid 10.5 game lead, so I'm pretty comfortable saying that they have the AL Central all locked up over there, but in terms of the Royals sneaking into the playoffs, I know that's the last thing any of the teams in the AL want to see, especially with how hot this team has been on both sides of the ball. So I have them sitting at number 9 right now.
Yeah, a hot team in September is not what you want to see. And the Royals, absolutely, or October, I guess I should say, the Royals absolutely are that hot team. They have really good pitching. We saw them ride that into the playoffs last year. Vinny Pasquantino, power bat, really good this season. Shout out Vinny P. My number 8 team heading into this week, I've got the New York Yankees. And I know, they just got swept. They just got swept. Their defense has been bad, and they can't really catch a run when it's not by the home run. All things that are issues, but Giancarlo Stanton playing really good, really, really good baseball behind the plate there. Ben Rice playing catcher, not something I had on my bingo card at the beginning of this season, but you know what? Why not? It's working. Aaron Judge, of course, still matching. It's Aaron Judge making a case yet again for an MVP, although it's going to be a little bit harder this season than it was last year simply because he missed a little bit of time and he's now been relegated to a DH. But the Yankees are my number 8 team, just behind my number 7 Blue Jays. I still don't fully buy into this Blue Jays team, but they get Shane Bieber back, and I think that's a huge get for them. I got the Yankees 8, Blue Jays 7.
Yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's really tough picking. I couldn't go more than 2 AL East teams on my list. It was so tough. But my especially with what happened today, I had to roll with the Red Sox. I have my Red Sox sitting at number 8, especially with how they've been playing. Roman Anthony looks like he's nightmare fluid for the next 10, 15 years for all Yankees fans out there. The new Rafael Devers of fluid for them, nightmare fuel. Red Sox are just playing out of their mind. They're pitching. Of course, Garrett Crochet, a Cy Young candidate. Brian Bale, like we mentioned off camera, playing phenomenally. Had pitched 7 solid innings. A guy that has really been through the ringer in the Boston media. Has really just shown up in a big way this year, and everybody loves him. I'm so happy for him the way he's shown out this season. And I have the Red Sox sitting at number 8. At number 7, I actually have the Astros sitting at number 7, the team that you put at number 10. This is an Astros team that's, yes, a little bit cold right now, only 4-6 in their last 10. But like you said, Jordan Alvarez coming back is going to be a big-time gain for them. I'm looking at their bats to heat up a little bit. And honestly, they could be the next hot team in the MLB. I think they're going to run away with the AL West.
They could for sure, and that's the scary thought. I'm not counting that Jordan Alvarez boost yet, which I think might be the difference between a 7 and a 10 because he's just doing rehab starts. But once he gets up there, maybe then I join you in boosting the Astros a bit up to the stars. My number 16, we talked about him. How about the Chicago Cubs? Chicago Cubs in a little bit of turmoil right now, but still near the top of the NL, still should make the playoffs, are basically a lock in there, but you never really know. Anything could happen down the stretch. Kyle Tucker hitting a home run today, huge. We love to see that from the Chicago perspective, but it's definitely a little concerning, all the reports that are coming out of that. Just outside of the top 5 are the Cubbies here.
Yeah, I have the Blue Jays sitting at number 6 myself. I mean, I'll honestly just say it. The Cubs are my number 5 team. Especially with the injuries to Kyle Tucker, I'm a little bit worried about that. But this is a team that's still playing really well on both sides of the ball. Their pitching's really well. Hitting, I mean, I think PCA is going to take the brunt of the load over there in Chicagoland, and I think the Cubs just keep coasting into the playoffs. I don't think they're going to go. They're going to go for for the division crown anymore just because of the Brewers. We'll get there a little bit later, but the Cubs will coast. I think they're going to coast to that first or second wild card spot and find themselves in a nice wild card matchup. And then, like I mentioned, the Blue Jays they're a weird team. I don't know if I'm 100% ready to say they're going to win the AL East just because their schedule gets really tough coming soon. But who knows? I think this last couple weeks, the last week of August, and then the first 2 weeks, I'd say, of September are going to be deciding factors on who wins the AL East.
Yeah, the AL East is going to be a tight race again. I'm just not too big on the Blue Jays. I just don't see I don't see that team being the best, although the AL East has not been the best in general this season. Entering my top 5, that's where we got the dads. The Padres at number 5 here. I like them a lot. I really like this Padres team, but a little bit behind the Dodgers. Still 2 games back of them. They got a couple big series coming up against each other. That's going to be huge, not just for the division, but for playoff implications overall. And the Dodgers right above them at number 4. That's the rivalry right there. 5-4 in my power rankings. Both of these teams not having the kind of season we expected out of them. The hype was a little bit too much for the Dodgers, but that was not including the absolute insane amount of injuries to the arms that they have taken. The Dodgers will be fine. The Padres will be fine. They're my number 5 and my number 4 team.
No doubt about it. I mean, my number 4 team is also the Dodgers. I mean, you said it best. Their arms, I can't. They're one of the top teams in terms of record right now, but I can't put them in that class just because of their pitching. When you have guys like we keep joking about Kike Hernandez coming out on the mound to pitch to be a reliever, but I mean Eduardo Henriquez as well across the board. I mean, this is a really rough Dodgers bullpen right now. Really just need some guys to come off IR if they can. Yamamoto's been struggling a little bit. They just lose a series to the Colorado Rockies. I just don't know what I feel about them. I have them sitting at number 4 right now, just because it's the Dodgers and their hitting is that good. Their bats are that loaded on the offensive side of the ball, but their pitching definitely scares me a bunch. I have them sitting at number 4. At number 3, I have the Philadelphia Phillies, the leaders of the NL East, one of the best teams in the MLB, no doubt about it. I mean, Bryce Harper. What else is there to really say? Bryce Harper is doing Bryce Harper things, as he always should. Trey Turner's playing phenomenal. JT Realmuto's really kind of resurrected his career not resurrected his career, but has really gotten hot the last couple weeks here. And I think the Phillies are going to coast. Honestly, they're probably the most confident pick outside of the Tigers to coast to the number 1 spot in the NL East.
Yeah, I tend to agree with you there. I've got the Tigers at 3 and the Phillies at 2. The Phillies, as good as Bryce Harper has been, which he's been phenomenal, doing things that we haven't seen out of Philly in a very long time. Kyle Schwarber, of course, making balls disintegrate as he does. Trey Turner just doing his thing, getting on base, having an elite defensive season kind of out of nowhere. This is a really good Phillies team. The big issue, of course, the big arm goes down. Blood clot. That's potentially season ending. They have depth, so they should be fine. But the Phillies losing Zach Wheeler is not what they needed to do here. I like this team a lot there at number 2. The Tigers, Tariq Skubal is going to win yet another Cy Young because he's the best pitcher in baseball. As long as they don't collapse down the stretch, this is a Tigers team that could do a lot of damage in the playoffs. But of course, my number 1 team. Brewers, we talked about them already. Red hot. How about that Brewers team? Again, they've taken just a little bit of a step back, but still, the way that the bats are producing, the lead that they've been able to get up to in the NL Central is huge as they, I won't say coast, but they get a nice little cushion. So if they have a bad stretch, they'll be able to recover because the Cubs, very dangerous. They're 6 for me. They're 6 for me for a reason. They're 5 for you for a reason, right? There's a reason that they're that high up in the MLB. They're also very dangerous. But top 3, Tigers, Phillies, Brewers, as we enter the end of this week in the MLB.
Yeah, I mean, we have very similar lists this week. I also have the Tigers sitting at number 2, and the Brewers are number 1. The Brewers, obviously the number 1 team in the MLB, 80-48, have a 5-game lead or 4-game lead and outside of anybody else in the entire league. I love this Brewers team. I think hopefully I think this is the year that they break that constant spiral of them crashing and burning in the playoffs. I really think this is the year, but at the very least, they're the number 1 team in the MLB right now, and deservingly so. I think they deserve all the props in the world, but be wary of those Cubs for sure, no doubt about it. The Cubs are not dead yet. They're still going to be hanging around. And then, of course, the Tigers, Cy Young, most likely. I mean, that him or Garrett Crochet in the AL for Cy Young. I think it's them and everybody else in the AL. So I also have the Brewers and Tigers sitting at top 2.
Yeah. I'll run through my top 10 here real quick. Astros at 10, Mariners 9, Yankees 8, Blue Jays 7, Cubs, Padres, Dodgers, and then the top 3, the Detroit Tigers, Phillies at 2, and the Milwaukee Brewers yet again at number 1 for the 4th straight time on my list over here. Real quick before we get out of here, Mehrob, I know you weren't here for the NFL segment, but I do want your thoughts. Tell me a little bit about the AFC West. Who's winning it? How many teams making the playoffs?
I really think I have the Broncos sitting at I have the Broncos winning the AL West this year just because of their defenses. As good as their defense was, it got even better this offseason. It really did. Adding Ty Hufanga on the back line, adding Dre Greenlaw. That team is just not only was it young already, but it just gotten so much better on the defensive side. And I'm looking at Bo Nix to continue to make strides. I know a lot of people have said he's going to have a sophomore year slump. I just don't see it. I really don't. I think this is a really good Broncos team that I wouldn't say doesn't get enough credit, but definitely a team that you got to watch out for. I'm looking at Cortland Sutton to continue to play at a high level. They add Evan Ingram as a tight end. That's going to be a big time addition for that team. You still have PS2, the best corner in the NFL. I'm looking at that team to continue to play at a high level and win the AFC West.
You're not worried about the Mac Jonesifying of Bo Nix?
I can't say so. I mean, no, I can't. I mean, I think Bo Nix, he doesn't rely on play calling as much as Mac Jones did, I'd say. That's what I would say. I mean, I really think Bo Nix is going to be one of the next best quarterbacks coming up in this year.
We'll see. We'll see if I have to swallow my words, but as it stands right now, if there is no Bo Nix haters alive, then I'm no longer with us. But anyway, we'll talk more football as Monday approaches. We'll talk everything that happened in college football, a top 25 matchup in Ireland. Keep an eye out for our show on Monday. Can't wait to see you all then. We have been your hosts, Jeremy Lapidus and Mehrob Fatemi. Check us out on every single platform, YouTube, Twitch, Instagram, TikTok, everywhere you get your podcasts. We'll see you then. Have a good one. Bye-bye.